Yeah. Today they put a new billboard above the house. George and I were just pulling up in the driveway, and we looked up and it was already rolled out. Really odd thing, this morning I left the house when it was dark, and as I drove away from the house, I looked up and the moon was solid red at like 6 something this morning. The moon was solid red, and I looked at it, I was just like, that is so crazy. To be at like 6:30 in the morning and see a solid red moon. And I didn't really think that much of it, except, wow, I've never seen that before. And then today the billboard goes above the house and it's got a big red circle on it and it says Zero. It's an ad for Coke Zero. And it's funny, Clay's sitting here, and when the Lord told me what to name my radio program, it was, this is it, before the fire, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Mm-hmm. And 4, 3, 2, 1 now, 0 is above the house. Well, it's odd because I finished the floor in here today. We'll do a walkthrough from the other side. It's pretty amazing, especially when you look through from the other side. It's got some very interesting stuff. Honestly, I was gonna redo it, but I prayed this morning. I said, Lord, I'm gonna redo the whole thing, and I came out here and there's this real high wind. And it was blowing stuff everywhere. And so metallic epoxy is like pouring honey on something. And it, if the wind blows leaves and it gets in it, those leaves are not coming out if they start drying. So anyway, I went inside and I prayed and I said, Lord, do you want me to do that? And I just heard the Lord tell me, cast a lot. So he showed me these words. He showed me cease and desist. Like, don't do any more, don't redo the floor. And that was the answer to that. And then I said, well, what do you want me to do? And I cast another lot, and it said protective coating, clear coat. And I'm like, that's crazy, because after you do metallic epoxy, you do a clear coat like shellac. That's what it said, exactly, shellac coat, protective coating. And I went, okay. And then I said, well, I'd really like to know, what do you think about the floor? I was kind of thinking more like a formal dining room thing, but it took this weird turn yesterday when I was doing it. It looks more like an art gallery. And when I said, Lord, well, what are your thoughts? He told me, I'll show you. And I turned all these pages. And it said, one of a kind, unique, artistic. It was really a cool moment. Like I knew that the Lord had told me, hey, I like it. It's unique. It's different. It said one of a kind. That's what it said, one of a kind, unique. So George and I are over here working on this, and so I was told to wrap the center conduit around the center post, and to put an upside down serpent head, and then at the top put a right side up serpent head, and that concludes the design for this project. And what's so fascinating is, it all fits, the whole thing, when you understand and you have the depth of understanding that the Lord's let us have through the gift of knowledge and the gift of wisdom. I mean, it's the most amazing, mind-boggling thing in the world. And now these hurricanes that are coming, I mean, with the 0 above the house. Now, I know how people get, when sometimes I say stuff, they misquote me. Am I saying it's over this second? Well, maybe, I don't know, but I know that this was my act of faith to put this container here to represent the Church of Philadelphia, the bride of Christ, the new Jerusalem, the new city of peace, because we're all new, we're all at peace because Jesus Christ is in us now. And so we're all new building blocks on that new city of peace, and the bride of Christ. And so I just find it mind-boggling that today this thing kind of is wrapping up. By Sunday, we're going to do a whole property thing where we go around like we're going to have an open house. We're going to clean it. George and I are going to do tomorrow. And then we have some work to do on Saturday somewhere else. And he's got some to do on Friday. But Sunday, we're going to do this massive, clean, prepare, kind of like we're doing an open house, when you're going to sell a house. But this is just to invite you all in video style and say, here it is. This is what I've been working on. In the house that has the Lord's name on it in Jewish gematria out front. So that's it, and it's installed. So glory to God, it's just so crazy.
Well, I want to talk about the odds for a minute. Okay, my first question is, what are the odds, on August 21st in Europe, 103 years ago, which took place in 1914 at World War I at the new moon of Elul. So it's like, yeah, there's total solar eclipses, but what are the odds you'll have one on the new moon of Elul? And did you know the last total solar eclipse across the United States was also 100 years ago, 1918 in World War I. So that tells you the odds of having a total solar eclipse across the United States is at least 1 in 100. You following me? Do you understand that? And having one on the 1st of Elul, also August 21st, the odds was 103 years ago. Okay, so the odds of having a total solar eclipse across the whole United States that people are going to see, 1 in 100. Okay, now how about hurricanes? It is said that no major hurricane has made landfall in the United States in more than 9 years. Okay, September 13th, 2008, there was Hurricane Ike. It made landfall at Galveston, Texas, but it was only a Category 2 hurricane. So now, what are the odds of having a Category 4 hurricane? Well, the last Category 4 storm to hit the United States was Charlie in 2004 that hit Florida. But the last Category 4 hurricane to hit Texas was 56 years ago in 1961. So we're looking at, what are the odds that a Category 4 hurricane would hit Texas? Well, 56 years ago was the last one. Now, what are the odds of having both events occurring in the same week, where you have a total, not a partial, a total solar eclipse crossing the entire United States at the beginning of Elul, and a Category 4 hurricane hitting the U.S. and Texas in the same week? What are those odds now? Because that sure didn't happen 100 years ago. Does that increase the odds a little bit, having a hurricane and a total solar eclipse in the United States? Look at this. In Luke 21:25, where it talks about being signs in the sun, moon, and stars, it also says there will be the roaring of the sea and the waves in the same verse. So what are the odds, not only that you have those things, what are the odds there would be a Bible verse explaining the end of days? We would see signs in the sun in the same verse talking about the sea and the waves roaring. What do you think the odds are of that? Now, do you want to see something really astronomical? Luke 21:25 is one of my favorite verses, because Genesis 1:14, God says there will be signs in the sun and the moon and the stars. And Luke 21:25, Jesus confirms there will be signs in the sun and the moon and the stars. So what are the odds of having both the total solar eclipse and a hurricane the same week? Well, what are the odds that it would happen on the 21st and the 25th? The solar eclipse happens on the 21st. The hurricane happens on the 25th. Now, coincidental? I mean, God is pointing us to this verse saying we are living in these times. Who else but God could do that?